from across Texas. The Issue Is a 2024 election special.
I'm Greg Grugan in the great city of Houston.
Howdy, I'm Rudy Koski near the 40 acres in Austin.
And I'm Stephen Dial in the Dallas market, home to the latest world champion from Texas. It is primary election day, and the Fox Texas Trio is here to discuss some of the big races.
You know, the Republican early voter turnout has outpaced the early vote for Democrats, primarily because there are more highly contested GOP races on the ballot.
Democrats have been focused on the U.S. Senate race, and we will find out tonight if there will be a runoff to decide who will challenge Ted Cruz.
The Democratic primary for U.S. Senate is where we will begin. Dallas Congressman Colin Allred has all the money, a lot of endorsements. Rudy Koski, will Colin Allred win outright tonight?
You know, that's a big question. Here in Austin, we're really focused on that Travis County DA's race on the Democrat side. But the polls on that Senate race, well, they say that Allred does have support, but that doesn't mean that he's locked down the votes. Low turnout elections, you know, they're notorious for debunking those polls. That could happen tonight. So the strategy for Allred's closest challenger, Roland Gutierrez, has always been to play to the hard left base that hates Donald Trump and to tap into the anger after the Uvalde school shooting. So if moderates and independents stay home, which can happen in a weak ticket primary, he could orchestrate a runoff with Allred. Can Allred get over that 50% hump tonight? I think that's what I'm going to be watching on the Democrat side in the Senate race.
Greg Grugan, what do you think?
Look, no question Allred wins, and it's almost certain to be outright, just a matter of the margin. Why? As you mentioned, Allred crushed the competition in the money war, which allowed him to erase his biggest challenge, that is, a huge number of Texans outside of DFW who had no idea when this race started who the heck he was. Thanks to a healthy TV buy that's changed dramatically, and clearly Democrats and potentially independents like what they see. As our friend Rice political analyst Mark Jones has said, Allred convinced national progressive donors he was the man to take on Ted Cruz in November and potentially steal a Republican Senate seat. Allred's personal narrative is persuasive. He's handsome, he's likable, he's moderate by current standards, he clearly loves the Lone Star State, and he played the national sport of Texas at the highest level. That's a pretty solid package to throw up against Cruz, who, let's just say, can't check all those boxes. In this primary, principal opponent, Roland Gutierrez, is genuine and spirited, but simply short on the kind of cash that could solve his fundamental problem. Half of Texas Democrats don't know who he is. Toss in the fact that the two known lesser opponents who could have helped drive this race into a runoff have attracted very little support, and that will make Tuesday a big night for Allred.
You know, if you watch College Game Day, if you're a fan of college football, it's kind of a jinx when all of the talking heads pick the same team, but I'm going to agree with you guys. I think Colin Allred will win outright. He has a name recognition, and out the gate, even against some of the head scratches that some people had, out the gate, Colin Allred made this a campaign against Ted Cruz. He was already looking to November. He has the name recognition in areas that he may have really not had much name recognition. That ad buy, that TV, all the money, the donations that he's gotten from in-state and out of state. Basically, the Democratic Party has been supporting Colin Allred from a national standpoint, not locally. Now, Roland Gutierrez had a good story. He still has a good story, but some people still see him as one-dimensional. And then they're also looking at, can he have broad appeal when it comes to the general election in November? That's where we will transition. Let's say Colin Allred is the nominee for the Democratic Party. Rudy, I've talked to some voters here in the Dallas area at the polling place who have said they wish that Colin Allred had the fire from Roland Gutierrez, but still the voting record and I guess characteristics of Colin Allred. I don't know how you can do that because Colin and Roland are two totally different candidates. But do you think if he had the fiery passion, dropping a couple of curse words or something in a speech that Gutierrez does, will that give Allred a better edge in November?
Yeah, do nice guys win? I don't know. That's a good question there. You know, right now all we really have are the polls. which, you know, they have faster expiration dates than a bottle of milk left in the West Texas sun. It will sour really quick. Yeah, it's true though, right? You know, a few months ago, some polls showed that Allred and Gutierrez both were in a tie with Senator Cruz. Then earlier this month, a UT poll came out showing Cruz with a very comfortable lead over Allred and a sizably larger lead over Gutierrez head to head. So we know where everybody stands on guns, abortion. So I think that there's going to be two wild card factors in November for whoever. One is, will the White House be able to convince the public that the recent border crisis was not caused by the Democrats' progressive policies, but Republicans who nixed a Trojan horse migrant workforce permit deal that would have allowed, and let's face it, would have allowed 35,000 illegal crossings a week. And the other wild card, number two, the economy. Those, I think, are what's really going to come down to whoever it is. Gutierrez, Allred versus Cruz. Border, economy, that's going to be the number.
Greg, plain and simple, Democrats have not won a statewide race. Maybe as long as I've been alive, I'm 34. It's been a while, we'll put it like that. What will Democrats do, or do they even have a shot in 24 to do that?
A lot has to change. Number one, Hispanics, which lean progressive, have got to start voting at a level which matches their share of the population. Number two, Democrats need to nominate candidates which are less left-wing and polarizing and more persuasively pragmatic and capable of attracting the growing number of independent voters. Number three, they've got to stop putting up candidates aiming to rapidly drive a stake into the Lone Star State's number one industry and source of generational wealth, oil and natural gas. And finally, number four, Democrats have to get someone in the White House that will abandon a policy that's allowed millions of uninvited immigrants to cross the Rio Grande and stay here. Until all or most of those things happen, Democrats here will do what they've done for the past quarter century, lose statewide, and in most cases, badly.
Tall task is what it sounds like you're saying. All right, let's transition to the Republican Party. We're going to talk about the Ken Paxton revenge tour. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, after being acquitted after an impeachment trial in the Senate, he has focused his attention on unseating multiple Republican incumbents, primarily Dade Phelan, the Speaker of the House, and Republicans in his own backyard in Collin County. Rudy Koski, who gets the last laugh, the incumbents or Paxton?
You know, in a fight, you don't want to do it in a rainstorm, and Paxton, his powder got wet. It got wet when he tried to kill that whistleblower lawsuit by saying that he would not contest their allegations about how his adultery caused problems in the Attorney General's office and how he tried to help a political donor beat a state and federal bank fraud investigation. You know, his revenge tour against House members who voted to impeach him, you know, that really didn't attract a lot of big crowds that I noticed. What I'm interested in with Paxton is his attack on three Republican judges on the Court of Criminal Appeals. You know, they sided with the state constitution, saying the Constitution, not Paxton, is where local voter fraud cases should be initiated. That being the local prosecutors inviting the AG's office in, Paxton wanting to just jump in whenever he wanted to. So, you know, Paxton wants new judges to overturn that decision. And so I'm really interested in seeing how that's going to play out. So I don't think his revenge tour against House members who voted to impeach him will really pay off. But I don't think a lot of people know enough about the Court of Criminal Appeals and just may hear voter fraud, go after that, why not, and side with Paxton and his picks. Just a thought.
Greg, I mentioned, all right, my bad, cutting you off, Rudy. Greg, I mentioned Collin County because that's where Ken Paxton is from. Governor Greg Abbott has visited Collin County multiple times during early voting, backing and endorsing Jeff Leach and Matt Shaheen and other Republicans who voted to impeach Ken Paxton. Governor Abbott has backed multiple candidates that Ken Paxton is opposing. Who gets the win in this, Governor Abbott or Ken Paxton?
Look, I'm told it's clearly the governor because of money and because of focus. Abbott is trying to flip just 10 or so House seats while solidifying his existing support to turn the school choice tide. Paxton is shooting wildly in every direction and hoping he gets lucky and hits something. And he's doing it without delivering a ton of cash to the candidates he's backing. Bottom line, when the dust settles, Paxton will have a lot more enemies still standing than Greg Abbott. And that's what really matters in Austin.
This question is for you both. Now, will this come down to personality politics where Jeff Leach may win, but Matt Shaheen may not, or Justin Holland may lose to Katrina Pearson, who used to work for the former President Donald Trump? Rudy and Greg, will this come down to the individual politician, or will it be if Paxton candidates win, it's a clean sweep, or the opposite?
I think it's going to be personality. I don't think the endorsement game from big state politicians who want to flip a lot of seats is going to be working. You know, there's just too many mixed messages out there right now. Plus, Governor Greg Abbott, and I'll disagree with Greg on this one, and what Greg just said. Greg Abbott has burned a lot of bridges attacking those who don't support his limited school voucher plan. Ken Paxton, you know, he's having a hard time shaking off the mud that's been sticking to him. And, you know, the approach by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, you know, it seems like someone fishing with dynamite. A lot of noise and a lot of carnage in the GOP. So mixed messages, loud messages, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of mixed messaging right there. Wouldn't you agree, Greg?
Look, I agree with you, Rudy, in that those lawmakers under attack who have done well, built a foundation with the people they serve, they're going to be just fine. If they were weak and Paxton came in and gave their challengers a little boost, yeah, they're going to be exposed to being knocked out of office. But those who did a good job, those who cultivated and served their districts well, they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I agree with that last point. I think it's a little of both. I think endorsements do sway some voters. Now, keep in mind, the word is some. And when you look at primary elections, the reddest of the red, the more progressive of the progressives, are the ones that are going to be the first ones at the polls. Now, Republican turnout has been very high. I mean, really high. And we talked to Mark Jones, and he even said he hasn't seen anything like this in some time. I think Attorney General Ken Paxton could get a win or a couple of wins statewide when we're specifically talking about the House. But I think the Governor Abbott candidates are going to hold court. Now, staying in the House, Paxton's biggest target is Dade Phelan, the Speaker of the House. Dade Phelan, who pushed through the impeachment vote after Paxton called him out for allegedly being drunk on the House floor. Rudy Koski, will Ken Paxton, I think you already signaled at what you think on this, but will Ken Paxton help unseat the Speaker of the House?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, Paxton is covered with a lot of political mud. And the Speaker has the backing of people like former Governor Rick Perry, along with several other high-profile conservative voices from here in Texas. Now, Speaker Phelan has spent a lot of time in neighborhoods, not just in Austin and not on network TV talking to network commentators, in a low turnout situation. And I know that what you mentioned, Stephen, is true, that we've got a lot of Republicans out there who are voting right now in early voting. But, you know, registered voters in Texas, 17 million. It's still a low voter turnout. So boot leather, I think, can beat a media blitz. But regardless of who wins tonight, when lawmakers return to Austin in January, the GOP wrestling cage match, which is pretty ugly, that's going to continue.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, all politics is local, right? And so the Trump effect of my complete and total endorsement, I know we have been hearing that in exhaust here in the Dallas market, my complete and total endorsement really fast from former President Donald Trump. I think when it comes to that House race, a lot of the noise that we're hearing, a lot of the Twitter comments that we're seeing, I mean, a lot of these are from people who aren't registered voters in that district. And so while on social media it may look like, man, Dade Phelan is dead to rights, I think Dade Phelan may have a good enough ground game to hold his own. What do you think, Greg?
Look, you know, frankly, I think a more pragmatic, more moderate approach in governance is the right way to go. I think that would, and that's kind of the Dade Phelan, what he brings to the table. Trump, Patrick, Paxton, money from the West Texas billionaires. That's a lot to overcome for Dade Phelan. So this thing may be pretty close. You know, I talked to Mark Jones as you guys do, and he thinks this is a pick'em right now. We are not on the ground there. I don't know how much sway Phelan has with the community he serves. I will say this, he has brought plenty of bacon back to the Golden Triangle area there, and so, you know, you would think that he could fight off those forces, but, you know, it's like the Death Star. He's being hit from all around, and this is Greg, a particularly bloodthirsty year.
Greg, let me jump in on that. You know, one of the things I was going to jump in on what Greg was saying. Well, I feel like that Speaker Phelan may have that ground game that you're talking about, Stephen. Is that I remember Congressman John Carter here in Central Texas was going up against a Democrat challenger who got a lot of money from out of state, a lot of West Coast Hollywood money. Commercials that were just amazing, well produced, jingles, you know, it was slick and all that. And Congressman Carter's just a good old guy, just a good old boy, and he worked the ground game and he won. Solid win. And I think that that's what Speaker Phelan's doing there in the Golden Triangle.
You know, we have never seen a political force like Donald Trump. People do what he tells them to do. And, you know, we have a very blue collar, very white, very rural kind of culture there in the Beaumont, Port Arthur, Jasper County area. I just don't think we should underestimate the power of Trump's endorsement, particularly in these times when people have dug in their heels behind him despite everything. And this is the Republican base we're talking about. There's only so many Chamber of Commerce Republicans out there, Rudy.
I mean, I agree. Let me jump in.
Let me jump in real quick. I agree with the end of what Greg is saying as far as we're in a new age of the Republican Party just in general. This is a different time with Donald Trump's endorsements, but Donald Trump has also endorsed a lot of candidates in the past, and they've lost races. In New York, a congressional seat, granted, while there will be another election soon, a Donald Trump candidate lost, and that has been a trend. Now, it's not common for a former president to get in the, I'm sorry to say it, get in the mud on some local races. Like, we're not talking about U.S. Senate here. We're talking about House seats. And Donald Trump has endorsed multiple people on these House seats. So the biggest question, and Rudy, you can tell Dove off of this, is does a big name endorsement really matter when it comes to local politics?
I think you hit the nail on the head there just a moment ago when you said Trump has a spotty record with his local endorsements lately. And again, you know, there's just so much mixed messaging, so much confusion within the GOP right now. Heck, the past few years, Trump has slammed, and here's something, slammed Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. But within the past few days, the Trump team has been trying to get the McConnell team to endorse the Trump presidential bid. What? You know, so I think everyone's getting a little political whiplash here.
Yeah, it'd be pretty boring on this show if we all agreed on everything. So it's good that you know, Rudy and I see things a little differently. Look, Dade Phelan, under normal circumstances, should walk in his reelection bid. But these are not normal times, and these are not normal forces being brought to bear. He's been labeled as a rhino. The quintessential rhino in Texas, and the roadblock to stopping, you know, much of the Republican Party's, you know, agenda. While they've accomplished a lot of what they have wanted to do, what has not been accomplished is being laid at the feet of Dade Phelan. He is the obstructionist in their mind. So we'll see if that message gets through, or whether loyalty will prevail as Rudy has suggested. I mean, he's brought home the power, brought home the projects to his district, and perhaps that shouldn't be discounted.
Yeah. All right, let's transition subjects. Governor Greg Abbott is on a little tour of his own. I know during Texas Issue Is Sunday, Rudy Koski said Winnebago, which maybe he'll explain again for the viewers in this context. Governor Abbott is trying to oust some Republicans who voted against school vouchers, school choice, whatever you want to call it. Public funds for private education is what it is. And the House said no in the last time it came to a vote. Rudy, will Governor Abbott get his wish?
Yeah, so I'll reference what I said on Sunday and the Winnebago. Yeah, the governor is like a tourist driving down a rural 2-lane road, barreling down in an oversized RV, just slamming through every squirrel, armadillo, turtle that's on the road, just leaving carnage behind. So, yeah, he's just plowing right on through on this. But, I don't think that he's going to flip all the seats that he needs to flip to pass his education savings account plan, which, again, is not real school choice. A lot of bridges being burned by Abbott, and I'm hearing he's going to have some problems when state lawmakers return to Austin in January. But I do think that a school choice plan will gain some traction and could actually pass sometime after January when lawmakers return. Odds are low for Abbott's expensive and limited voucher plan, but a universal plan that allows a family's local tax dollar to go with their kid to the school that they want their kid to go. Now that's a bill to watch, and that one I think has traction and may be the Winnebago in January.
Greg, Governor Abbott and Ken Paxton do agree on this. They agree on education savings accounts. Will Abbott get his wish?
I think he's going to get close. I mean, this is going to be a test of money and focus and strategy, all of which have been brought to bear on these roughly 10 targets. He needs 6, maybe 7. I think that's doable. We're going to wait and see. He has put a lot of political capital on the table here. What will it say if Greg Abbott, after multiple sessions, loses on vouchers and then throws all of his political weight into the voucher fight to unseat those who voted against it, and he loses again? I just don't know. I just don't know what that says about his political clout in the long run if he can't win this battle. So that's why he's sticking to it.
Yeah, Greg, and I think you're right. And I think Governor Abbott's in trouble because I think the rural lawmakers, they're swinging back hard. They're basically exposing what the governor's pitching is not real school choice. And that is, I think people are listening to that. People are realizing that this education savings account idea is an expensive thing that won't even touch the numbers of people that are kids already in private schools right now. So why should a state, which is supposedly fiscally conservative, going to be throwing money that way? And I think that's the problem, and it's a big problem for Greg Abbott, and I think it's going to cost him. We'll see that tonight if that plays out.
Short answer, Rudy, because Florida has him.
Go ahead.
Short answer, because Florida has him.
Yeah,
that's true.
And Stephen, real quick, I mean, I want to take a page out of Rudy's playbook. Rudy, could this be, imagine if Santa Ana had looked at the Alamo with its few hundred defenders and said, I'm just going to march around it. Those guys can stay there all they want. Instead, he fought for 14 days and lost a couple thousand troops, and inflicted damage that probably hurt him to where he was tired when he finally got to San Jacinto and got ambushed.
Look, I agree with you guys in part. I agree that it's going to hurt Abbott, but I think in a different way. Let's say it fails, right? Let's say he does not get the numbers. I think it's going to hurt him on the flip side when it comes to the public schools. I've looked at school board after school board, and up here in North Texas, we have some pretty conservative school boards after the pandemic. A lot of school boards have become very conservative, and even some of those conservative school boards are calling out the state, which they don't say the name Governor Abbott, but calling out the state because these school boards are making budget cuts because they haven't gotten a increase in the basic allotment in about 5 years or so. And so I think it's going to hurt him on the back end with the public schools when things try to come back to regular order and we're in a new session, and then the public schools are closing schools, which has been reported across the state, are cutting back funding, cutting back salaries. I mean, not salaries, but cutting back numbers of employees. And so I think it could hurt Governor Abbott. Okay, guys, it's prediction time. Go ahead, Rudy.
No, I just think you're right. And just put numbers to that. The Texas American Federation of Teachers just came out with a poll, a survey of their members. 66,000 people strong. And more than 90% said that they're going to come out and vote. And more than that number of 90, I think 95% said that they're worried about this education, school choice stuff and all that lingo. They're motivated. That is a huge voting block at a low voter turnout time. That spells big trouble for a lot of these voucher supporters.
All right. So if we were all great at predictions, I think we would maybe be in different jobs. So don't hold us to the fire on these predictions. But Rudy Koski, you are first. What will be the headline Wednesday morning?
My headline: Giant meteor with RFK Jr. as VP tops November presidential poll.
What? What?
Okay.
There are a lot of people
what's your
upset.
real
They want
headline?
somebody else. They're going to vote. They're going to vote for a giant meteor. You know, they want somebody else. That's my headline. They want somebody else.
Okay. Greg Grugan, let's see if yours is a little different. What's your headline?
All right, we've kind of traveled this ground, but given the current bloodthirsty political environment, given the fact that Donald Trump, Ken Paxton, and Dan Patrick have all piled in against him in his home district, win or lose, it will be the fate of House Speaker Dade Phelan in the headlines. Look, I don't know who will win, but if I had to bet, I'd say we may have a speaker's race on our hands. I know Rudy differs, because that's an awful lot of opposition for a controversial incumbent to overcome in a heavily Trump-loving, heavily blue-collar Republican primary. If Phelan somehow does prevail, moderate Republicans across the state will be celebrating the preservation of the last legislative firewall, holding back an increasingly hardcore base and the policies they seek to impose, Stephen. And that's why it's so significant, win or lose.
All right, mine
is there a headline in there, Stephen?
Well, yeah, that was a speech, but hey, all right, mine is Paxton revenge tour unsuccessful, comma, he turns his eyes to 2026 against John Cornyn. That's my headline.
Hey, I think that Greg's got good money. Greg's got good money.
Ahead.
I think he's right. I think that there's going to be a speaker's race in January. I think Greg is spot on, regardless of who wins. I think that there will be a new speaker race there, and I think that's spot on for Greg.
All right, guys. We'll have to leave it there. Man, they gave us extra time, and we still have stuff to talk about, but we'll leave it there. You can see this on our station's YouTube channels.
Hey, yeah, and go to all our social media sites and let us know what you're thinking. That's how we get these issues.
And you better believe we're going to be unpacking all of the results next Sunday night. So please join us. The political landscape of Texas may look a lot different. And in the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.